Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Robots from 2005. And this is a winner of the Patreon movie review vote. If you would like for me to review a movie of your choice, then click on the link below and pledge, and maybe I'll be reviewing your movie next month. And this movie was selected by Jordan Bouchard. So, as I've looked up any review or anything about this movie, it's usually through sort of a nostalgic lens, like people watched it as kids and watched it a lot, I guess, and rewatched it as adults and found all this stuff and whatever. I don't have that nostalgic view. Making this review was the first time I'd ever seen it, so this is not going to be a nostalgic review. If you're coming here to watch a review that agrees with your nostalgia or something, this is just not going to be that. I was in college and doing college things that, people who are dads brag about to make themselves look cool kind of stuff. So it's not going to be one of those. I find this movie, I do think it's actually fairly interesting. And I do think it is kind of doing more than maybe it even realizes. But it is super hard to sort of get through because of all of its baggage at the time. It's very much bouncing off the walls, hitting a ton of ideas. It's like gag after gag after gag. It doesn't seem to make any fucking sense to me whatsoever in some places. And it feels very typical. The celebrity voices don't even really make sense. You have your Robin Williams, you have Jennifer Coolidge, you have some people who are Greg Kinnear, you have people who are perfect to do, or like made to do voice over roles, and then you have people who are like, I don't know, they're famous, so like why not? Which happened a lot in this sort of era of CGN, or this era of animation. It's kind of funny to me that this all started because, hey, wouldn't it be cool if Robin Williams was in a cartoon because he's Robin Williams, and every other movie that did the celebrity casting forgot that was why that was kind of the draw. Whatever, they used Robin Williams effectively. It's kind of a shame he wasn't in more animation, frankly. I think that's kind of failure for all of Hollywood, and probably whoever fucked him over for Aladdin is, I think all of film culture suffered for that. But I had an interesting experience watching this, and I did not grow up with Blue Sky because I was like too old, and I don't really know. I haven't seen an Ice Age, actually. I've seen a fair amount of Blue Sky. You can watch those reviews on a playlist or whatever. So I was watching this movie, there's all these like celebrity voices, and it's sort of doing its CG family film thing, and the guy who's voiced by Ewan McGregor is like following his dreams and stuff, and it felt very sort of typical to me, and you're hearing the celebrity voices, and we're going through the motions, and I was sort of like, okay, the designs are definitely interesting, and this kid wants to be an inventor who's voiced by Ewan McGregor and all that, and he is going and everything. Eventually, when he gets to the big city to become a big inventor, we learn what is actually this film is really about, I would say. And something that I found kind of made this film, I think probably the most notable thing about it and made it most interesting, is it's basically about like this kid the whole society is robots. Everybody's a robot. I will say I think the design is actually kind of interesting. Not really clear and not distinctive, and kind of like I sort of think a mess, but I sort of like their commitment to it. I actually like, I'm like, I don't know if this like works necessarily, but I'm like, I like that you did this. Like, this feels like uncharacteristically messy for the time period, and like, I would think most people wouldn't make it. No, it's by design. Like, it's perfectly fitting with the theme. It's perfectly on purpose, and I love that they did that, particularly a studio that I did not, at the time, feel is the most experimental. I mean, this is during when Chris Meledandri was involved, and in Blue Sky, and Chris Wedge, and all those guys are not known for being like huge experimental filmmakers. And this is like interesting. It's like there's a story purpose for why they look that way, and basically it's like you have the society of robots, and as you grow up, like humans sort of grow up, they kind of take a human thing, which is like, why would robots be so binary? But whatever, we'll let that go. But you basically order a baby, and then you get replacement parts so the baby can grow. This kid, Rodney Copperbottom, like he always has hand-me-down parts, so like he has to have, like, at one point he has to have his like girl cousin's parts because they didn't have any other parts, and those were the only parts he had, so he had to just sort of deal with it. And people basically are like, kind of, a lot of people have parts, like used parts and stuff, or a lot of robots have used parts and stuff like that, but he wants to be an inventor, Rodney Copperbottom, and he grew up watching this one robot who's voiced by Mel Brooks, another great choice for voice acting, frankly, and also for someone to look up to, because Mel Brooks is like great at being an old guy too, and Mel Brooks rules basically. But I mean, he's Mel Brooks, but I love Mel Brooks. Everybody loves Mel Brooks. He's great in this too. I mean, this movie has Mel Brooks and Robin Williams. That's amazing. He wants to be this inventor. He goes to the city, finds everything is different, and a new guy is running things, who I believe that's Greg Kinnear, right? I think, is it? Yeah, let's just say it's Greg Kinnear. I'm probably right. Greg Kinnear. And he he's taken over the company. The old guy Mel Brooks played is like pushed to the side, and what his idea was is they're no longer going to support replacement parts, basically. They're no longer going to do that. So if something's wrong with you, you can't just buy a part and fix it out with a robot. They're doing full upgrades. And basically, instead of having these all different, weird, unique robots, every robot is going to look the exact same. And so Rodney Copperbottom is against this, obviously, because he has like a soul and stuff, but also because that's obviously against everything he wants to be as an inventor. He tries to find the original guy and take his place and bring things back to normal, and also doesn't like this kind of like overarching like taking over of all of society by this like idea of beauty standards and obviously like corporate mandating parts and stuff like that. Now there are like so many levels to this evil plot. It made me so much more interested in this movie, which I was like, kind of like, I do not get why anyone would want me to talk about this. I don't want to just shit on someone's childhood. But there's a couple things that makes this film more interesting, but on so many levels. One is the idea of the right to repair, which is an actual like political thing. Like Congress has met on that. They fight people like Apple, for example, and other companies, and that's a real thing that's become more relevant now than it has been. It's always been a relevant issue. A lot of companies try to do that, where they kind of make it so you can't repair your own stuff or can't fix it. I know, like what's the tractor company, John Deere, does that with their tractors or stuff. If you miss a part, you have to have a specific part, and it's on a computer program. If they see you're messing with it, they'll just shut down your tractor, actually. So this is actually more relevant now than it was then in that part. And the idea that like you have to deal with this company, you have to repair it their way. A lot of governments in a lot of countries make that illegal because it's obviously like monopolistic, and he's against that. And that 100% like a great moral to teach kids in a kids movie, that companies should not have this. It's evil to have this kind of monopolistic idea of it. In addition to that, these are not just like machines we're talking about everybody, and there's no humans, they're all robots. And if they're all robots, like the idea that they all look unique and different, and that like society is pushing like they all look the exact same, is actually really interesting as well, because it is pushing that idea of like, well, all robots should look this sleek, nice design, and you buy for this full upgrade. It's also talking about how the wealthy will find ways to financially put barriers between the poor and the rich and make it like harder to get to that level and continue that thing, but also the idea of beauty standards as well. So there's like, and this film is not, I'm not reading into this even so much. It is very much like, this is not the subtext. This is the text of the whole thing. It's very much upfront about that. I thought that was probably the smartest thing this film has going for it, and the best thing it has going for it. And I really appreciate that it tried to, it's fully on display. And that is like, I really, really respect this film for doing that. It also has one of the longest fart jokes I saw from this period that got blamed for a lot of fart jokes at the time in a kids movie, where Jennifer Coolidge's character has like a really big butt and does like a massive fart and stuff. So like there are levels to this thing. I think this is like, in a better filmmaker, this could have been something truly, really interesting, because it's like, I think the Looney Tunes frantic style has led many cartoons astray, because you actually watch Looney Tunes on the regular, you will see that it's like, it might be a ton of like crazy gags, and it might feel like, you know, they're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. But like all of it is within the bit and within the gag. It doesn't like veer off to crazy world and come back. And if it does, it sort of works within the character and the actual physics of the cartoon. There's this part that like people really like, I guess you were kids, I don't fucking know, where like suddenly Robin Williams is fighting and he does like a Britney Spears dance number out of nowhere. I do not understand why I was, what the fuck is this? Like he's just singing "Hit Me Baby One More Time." Like, what's the fucking joke here? Like, I don't get, like, Britney Spears, haha. I don't know, guys. I was like, I don't get that whatsoever. Like, why the fuck? And it's like 2005. Like, shouldn't you be obsessed with Toxic by that point? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it's just like they kept doing things that, like, they definitely let Robin Williams go, and it's like, that's fine. He's Robin Williams. And I like that there's like some trans ally stuff in this, which I also appreciated. But it did feel like often with so many voices and characters, you either have people bouncing off the walls doing all sorts of crazy things. And there's pluses to that. The Rube Goldberg version of what they make transit for the robots was actually like a really, like, it was way out there, and they never really get into it again. So worth it. It's just like them showing off. It was cool to watch. I agree with that. But like oftentimes you have people going off the walls, doing joke after joke. Doesn't matter if it fits. We're throwing jokes out there. And then you have like someone like Halle Berry, who I really like as an actress, not really a strong voice actor. Like I kind of would have preferred a professional voice actor there, or like, you know, Amanda Bynes works very well. And you have Mel Brooks, and like you have some really great people. And then you have like Ewan McGregor. I like him a lot. But yeah, you have these kind of voice actors who are really perfect at it. You have some that are just there for the star quality. You have jokes bouncing all over the place that aren't funny, don't make any sense in the context, and are just there to like funny it up, which feels like, unlike in something like Looney Tunes or old cartoon shorts, which has to be relevant or have some sort of continuity within their loose plots in itself, this is just like totally goes off the rails most of the time. It almost felt like seeing an art film or Megalopolis or something, where I'm like, I don't know what is going on with all these jokes sometimes, but it does feel like it has a real core to saying something. And I think that makes this film better. Also, I forgot to mention this part that I noticed is like, look, this is an animated film. You have a guy who shows up on TV, inspires the youth to get into his industry, and then there's a more corporate evil guy who is ruining that company now. Is this Michael Eisner? Was he Walt Disney? Was the thing is like, if Walt Disney came back, like innovate, like that part I felt like was probably going on. This is 2005. Everybody like would shit on Eisner all the time. I think Iger is probably a worse executive in the grand scheme of things, but I guess, you know, Eisner fucked over Pixar, so we're always gonna hate him and stuff. But I'm reading that one. I might be reading into. I think all the morals and stuff are very present, but that one I'm like, it feels very close to that. I know there are different studios, and I don't think they were at all connected at the time, but it feels like there's a little bit of the, you know, corporate evil guy running the dream studio thing. It was a bit in there. And hey, like Paul Giamatti was in this, Drew Carey. I was okay with this. I think if you're like, this movie is deeper than I realized as a kid, it 100% is. I'm not going to tell you it's not. I think that's its big shining thing about this movie. But I don't really like watching it. It was like kind of chaotic. It felt like they needed to rein it in. I wish they had a director who could do the goofy cartoon stuff but also say something with it at the same time. And I don't know if Chris Wedge, at least through this direction, seems like he kind of got lost in the sauce of making a big, you know, studio movie while also trying to say something. It didn't feel like he was using a big studio movie to say something. It felt like he was doing them kind of in opposition to one another. And there's, you know, it's like the fart joke. I felt like it's like he felt like he needed to do that, or he needed to do this and stuff like that. I know this was like not as big as Ice Age. It made like $100 million less worldwide or around that. It still was a success in what I can read. It doesn't feel like it was as big as Ice Age. That might have been like, these character designs are not really, I wouldn't call them iconic the way, you know, whether I like Ice Age or not, obviously, or I don't know much about it at all, but like, you know, those designs very well. They're very, you know, very easy to spot, very easy to identify. I don't know if Robots is as clear in that, but I do think it's a shame. You could probably say more things about technology and beauty standards of society and things like that. Were you able to make more of these films? So if you're like, oh, it was sort of one and done, what would you do? I mean, I just think like talking more about upgrades in technology and the moral uses of technology would be a wholly worthwhile endeavor. And it might be like, maybe I don't love this movie, but a Robots 2, if they could explain like, you know, why Elon Musk sucks or something like that, I would be totally okay with a Robot seat. They could just go on about how like various technology companies and rich people are evil. I'm like so down for that. You can make like 4 Robots movies. I'll not like them all and say morally you get a good review. It would be wonderful. But that's, unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I do think like this film very much has its heart in the right place, and so much of the right place. It like, I feel like this film will be relevant to watch. So if like, I'm probably not going to show my kids, I don't have the connection to it, but if you're like, you know, fuck this guy, I'm going to show it to my kids, I 100% think you should. Actually, I think like, if my kids want to watch this, I'll be like, okay, like, I don't want to watch it, but at least you'll get some smart morals from that. I don't think we talk enough about that when we show kids movies, like the morals they will gain from that, and I think this film does that. So am I saying, you know, I don't really like it as a movie? Sure, but I think its heart and its morals kind of sort of transcend that, and it's really saying something about the evils of technology, the evils of beauty standards, and also how Michael Eisner sucks. And I can't think of a more, it's kind of like a full package of the worst of 2000s animation, like with the celebrity voices, with the fart jokes, with the constant throwing things at the wall, trying to not letting the audience not laugh, or, you know, none of these were funny really, but I'm assuming someone would, and also really telling an interesting moral lesson. And I think it's the best and the worst at the same time. I think in the end it's sort of okay, but I'm sort of just glad this okay movie exists, because at least it's telling you and teaching you something instead of just being fart jokes, but it's also, you know, a lot of fart jokes. So if you have seen Robots and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. And if you would like for me to review a movie of your choice, click on the link below and pledge to the Patreon, and then you can make me review a movie as well. Thank you very much for watching.